You ever wonder why certain things just seem to set you off? Or maybe why some people struggle with health problems that don't seem to have a clear cause? Well, the answers might be hidden deeper than you think, rooted in events from our childhood that can quietly, and I mean quietly, shape our brains, our bodies, and really our entire adult lives. So let's get into it.
Our story today starts with a real puzzle. I want you to imagine you're a doctor and you're running this super successful weight loss clinic. Your patients, they're doing great, they're losing weight, they're feeling better, and then right when they're at the peak of their success, they just vanish. They drop out. What in the world is going on? Well, this exact situation was driving Dr. Vincent Felitti crazy back in the late 1980s. The pattern just made zero sense, so he did something really simple, but as it turns out, totally profound. He just started talking to them. He sat down with the patients who quit and asked why. He was pretty sure the answer would be about, the diet or exercise. He couldn't have been more wrong. What Dr. Felitti started to uncover had almost nothing to do with calories and everything to do with the past. And this discovery would shift his entire focus away from the body and toward the brain, leading to one of the most important public health studies of our time. You see, patient after patient started telling him these stories of really profound childhood trauma, and this wild hypothesis started to form in his mind. What if their extra weight wasn't a problem, but a solution? A kind of physical shield they'd built to cope with emotional pain they had never resolved. This incredible insight led him to team up with the CDC for the now landmarked Adverse Childhood Experiences Study, what we call the ACEs study.
Neuroscientist Janet Sehorn uses this simple nursery rhyme to describe what trauma feels like. It's so perfect. One moment, you're sitting on the wall, you're whole, you're intact, and the next, there's a fall, an event, and everything just shatters. It's this sudden, fragmenting experience that can feel absolutely impossible to come back from.
So the big question is, just how common is this great fall? Well, the ACEs study set out to answer that, and honestly, the findings were just staggering. They revealed that these experiences aren't just rare misfortunes affecting a few people, they are a hidden epidemic. So first, let's be clear on what we're talking about. ACEs, or Adverse Childhood Experiences, are defined as potentially traumatic events that happen to you between birth and age 17. The original study focused on 10 specific types, and they grouped them into 3 main buckets. Now, what's really striking here is just how broad these experiences are. It's not just what you might typically think of as trauma. Of course, it includes direct abuse and neglect, but it also includes the chronic grinding stress of just living in a home with addiction or mental illness or violence. The big takeaway here is that this can and does affect absolutely anyone. Okay, here is the first jaw-dropping number from that study. 64%. Nearly 2/3 of the entire adult population has experienced at least one of these traumatic events in their childhood. Think about that. This isn't some niche issue. It's practically a universal human experience. And it gets even more serious. 1 in every 6 children experiences 4 or more ACEs. And we're not talking about one single bad event here. We're talking about a childhood that is literally defined by recurring, pervasive trauma, often from the very people who are supposed to be protecting them. And this is where we see the most devastating pattern. The more ACEs you have, the higher the risk for all sorts of bad outcomes. For someone with an ACE score of 6 or more, the likelihood of a suicide attempt increases by 5,000%. And no, that is not a typo. It's a direct, heartbreaking line between the pain of childhood and the despair of adulthood. So, how does this happen, right? How can events from decades ago have such a powerful physical grip on our health today? Well, the answer is in our neurobiology. Because trauma doesn't just leave emotional scars, it physically remodels the very architecture of a developing brain. Think of your body's stress response system as kind of like the gas pedal in a car. It's designed to give you a quick burst of energy to escape danger and then ease off. But chronic childhood stress, it's like having your foot slammed on the gas pedal 24/7. The system gets stuck in the on position, constantly flooding your body with stress hormones and never letting you get back to a state of rest and safety. Okay, so let's look at how this plays out in 3 key parts of the brain. First up, the amygdala. This is your brain's smoke alarm. After trauma, it becomes hyperactive. The sensitivity dial gets cranked way, way up. All of a sudden, a car backfiring sounds like a gunshot. A harmless grasshopper can trigger a full-blown panic attack because the smoke alarm can no longer tell the difference between a real fire and, burnt toast. Next up is the hippocampus. This is the brain's memory filer. All that chronic stress, It literally causes the hippocampus to shrink. And this makes it so much harder to file away memories correctly. Traumatic memories don't get stamped with a nice, neat, past event label. Instead, they stay active, they stay raw, leading to flashbacks where the brain literally re-experiences the event like it's happening all over again right now.
And finally, there's the prefrontal cortex, the CEO of the brain. This is the part that handles rational thought, impulse control. It puts the brakes on emotional reactions. But when that smoke alarm in the amygdala is constantly blaring, the CEO basically gets shut down. This makes it incredibly difficult to use logic to calm yourself down and say, hey, wait a minute, I'm actually safe right now. The survival brain just completely overrides the thinking brain.
Now, here is a really, really vital thing to understand. These brain changes, they aren't a sign of damage or weakness. As Janet Sehorn puts it, it's not a disorder, it's a reordering. Your brain isn't broken, it adapted. It brilliantly rewired itself so that you could survive in a world that it learned was dangerous.
But living with this reordered brain can make navigating the quote-unquote safe world incredibly challenging. A simple, everyday experience can suddenly feel like a minefield as the past just crashes into the present without any warning.
Janet Sehorn tells this powerful story about her husband who was a Vietnam veteran. One Saturday, they're at an amusement park and they take him on their favorite ride, the Dragon. But as the ride starts swooping up and down, he doesn't laugh. He turns pale white and starts begging for it to stop. Afterwards, he was physically sick for hours. What nobody knew was that the motion of that ride triggered a visceral flashback to a helicopter crash in Vietnam, where he was thrown from the aircraft covered in the fuel and blood of his friends. In his brain, he wasn't on a ride. He was right back in the war.
And when you hear a story like that, it can feel so hopeless, right? As if the damage is done and the brain is just set in stone. But the most important message from all of this research is that this is absolutely not a life sentence. The brain is not static.
And this is possible because of this incredible thing called neuroplasticity. It's the brain's amazing ability to change, to adapt, and to form new connections all throughout our lives. The very same process that wired the brain for survival can be used to rewire it for safety, for calm, and for connection.
And there are so many paths to that rewiring. Healing isn't just about talking, it's also about doing. Things like cognitive therapies can help that CEO, the prefrontal cortex, come back online. But just as important are body-based practices like yoga or Tai Chi that can help regulate the nervous system from the bottom up, basically teaching the body that it is safe, right here, right now. But while healing individuals is absolutely critical, the ultimate goal has to be prevention, and this quote just frames it perfectly. It's not enough to get better at parking an ambulance at the bottom of the cliff to treat the injuries. We have to focus our efforts on building a much stronger fence at the top, creating safe, stable, nurturing environments where kids are protected in the first place. And that fence, well, it's built by all of us. It's built when we support new parents, when we strengthen our communities, when we check in on our neighbors, and when we work to break cycles of trauma in our own families. So I'll just leave you with this thought. What's one small step, just one single action you can take this week to make that fence just a little bit stronger?